Session, sitting all my friends and colleagues in the studio here in the EMPC and all my colleagues who are sitting at the regional centers. This is a second session and a very important session on benchmarking standards and quality assurance of eContent. We had a very interesting session, the first session, which was on the basic concepts and methodologies of instructional design in digital world. We had two speakers from the UK, you all listened to them, and two speakers from the Indian side. Both of them, they gave their the concept, the perspective of the instructional design, what they are doing it. We didn't have the time to interact with them, but there were, I'm sure, a number of questions from all my colleagues here, sitting here, and also on the regional centers. So keeping that point in mind, maybe we will squeeze a little time from the speakers who are in this session, and we will have some 10-15 minutes for the interaction, because this is a very, very important area, theme of instructional design, and especially when we are talking about the eContent thing. So I welcome two of my colleagues, the panel colleagues here. Ms. Gwyn from the, if I have pronounced the word, your spelling correctly, from the University of Bath, and my colleague, Dr. Sanjay Mishra. So just a little bit of introduction of each one of them. Ms. Gwyn is the Director of Learning and Teaching Enhancement at the University of Bath. She is responsible for quality of learning at teaching, for e-learning provision, which is very important, and development, academic staff development, support for international students, and academic and professional skills development for students. She, in her current role, she takes teaching, including national recognition for excellence in teaching. The details are given for my colleagues in the folders which you all have. My other colleague who is going to speak on the quality assurance, Dr. Sanjay Mishra, my colleague from where I come from, Staff Training and Research Institute of Distance Education, but presently he is the Director SEMCA. Sanjay, if I say so, not say, Dr. Mishra, Sanjay has an 18 years large experience in design, development, and management of open and distance learning programs. The most important point which I want to introduce him is that his work on open education resources and open access to scientific information around the world, which his earlier work was with the UNESCO. When he was in IGNOU, he did many important work in this area. With these, I will not get into the detail of it. Maybe after their presentations, we will have an interaction. So over to Ms. Gwyn. We have 10 minutes each, and then 10 to 15 minutes of interaction.
Thank you, and thank you very much for inviting me to be here. It's been an interesting debate so far, and we're very, very much enjoying it and learning an awful lot. So thank you for letting me be part of it. I wanted to talk a little bit about benchmarking standards and quality assurance of eContent within a UK perspective. We separate the academic standards and the quality assurance conceptually, but in practice this comes very much together. So when Kyriaki, my colleague, spoke earlier today about eContent and the choreography of learning, we split off the choreography conceptually of the eContent. And I thought it might be helpful for you on this slide to show you the two different approaches that we have. So when we look at assuring ourselves that the academic standards are met, that the quality of the academic standards, that the quality of the content, be it e-content or other content, is achieved and the intellectual achievement that we would expect is reached, we refer to national subject benchmarks. This is not a national curriculum, but these are nationally set learning outcomes that one would expect within different disciplines. We very heavily rely on external examiners and professional bodies, depending on what discipline we're in. And in my institution, where there's a heavy reliance on science and engineering, the professional bodies are incredibly important. In other areas, such as humanities and social sciences, that is less the case. And in that case, it is the Quality Assurance Agency that is very much overseeing the external examiner system. The external examiner system consists of peers from comparable universities, checking our curriculum, checking our content, making sure that the examinations and the assessments are at the level that is expected. Very much, though, on the academic standard side, very much content driven. We also have annual course result reviews because we want to see how our students are doing, and we want to compare that to other institutions to make sure that we are not too easily awarding degrees or too easily awarding a pass, but also to make sure that we don't make it too hard, that we are fair on assessment. And that is how, through peer comparison, we benchmark content. A further part of that are degree scheme reviews. They are different in different universities, but by and large, every 4, 5 or 6 years, there is an overall review of the curriculum, of the content of learning. That means there may be employers involved, there will be peers from other institutions involved. In our case, there are also very much students involved, and of course the academics who teach the program. It is a fairly long process because we very much look in depth at the content and whether that is up to date, whether that reaches what's expected, but also whether that content effectively comes across to our learners, and that we are assured that the standards that our students achieve are what we set out to do. The quality assurance, if you like, is on the other side of things. This is very much about the process of learning, or as Kyriaki called it, I like that expression, the choreography. What we do here is slightly different. We take a far more developmental approach because we know that learning changes. Cohorts of students change, expectations in society change, employer expectations change, so we constantly have to adjust. There is more of a developmental element in that part of quality assurance. One of the areas we concentrate on is academic staff development. Any member of staff who starts in a university these days across the UK will take on a course normally of about a year long of teacher training to make sure that their teaching is what is expected within a massified system. It doesn't stop there. We very much expect that academic staff maintain in good standing in terms of their teaching credibility. That is a growing area of development, and within the UK in the next number of years you will see that the government will be expecting statistics from every institution on how qualified all their staff are in terms of teaching, and especially how qualified experienced staff are. So that's quite a strong development on ensuring that it's not just about the content, it's very much about the learning. We're very much concentrating, and in the next presentation I'll come back to that in more detail, on the student feedback on learning and teaching. Without knowing how students perceive their own learning, without knowing how students perceive the quality of the teaching, and without knowing how students find the content accessible or not accessible, we don't know how well our teaching is actually working. So that's a very important area. This happens at the level of units, this happens at the level of the program, this happens every year. There is a national student survey which also takes place, which leads to nationally published figures on how well students feel that the teaching takes place. So the student input on that is very important. There are also course evaluations by staff. These are trained staff who know how to teach and how to reflect on teaching, and especially how to reflect on learning. So every year academic staff are asked to consider their teaching and to look at unit by unit how their students have done, whether they feel that teaching has gone well, whether they feel there is a new approach needed or different learning would be required. To support that, we have a system of peer review of teaching. So all academic staff will work together with one of their colleagues on watching each other lecture, or comparing notes on how supervision is done, or comparing approaches to assessment and looking whether what somebody's trying to achieve in terms of assessment, whether their peer from within the institution feels that is actually being achieved. So it's a very reflective model of quality assurance on the teaching or the choreography side. So that's broadly where we come from. Most academic staff in my own university and in universities across the country will not see that divide very clearly, because our systems and processes are so ingrained by now that conceptual separation is not really there. But it becomes a very important conceptual separation when we start thinking about eContent and about e-learning. The discussions on e-learning and on e-learning quality and benchmarks is very much on the area of quality assurance. There have been huge discussions in the past about whether we should quality assure e-learning, e-teaching, e-tutoring, e-assessment in a separate way because the learning is so different, or whether we should not. There is an acceptance of the very different nature of e-learning and teaching, and there is no difference in standing whether you have achieved your awards through e-learning or through other routes. And the specific reasons for that I'll come back to. The e-learning curriculum, though, even though there may be different ways of quality assuring the e-teaching, the e-tutoring, the e-assessment and the e-student experience, when it comes to the quality of the content, when it comes to those academic standards, we do not look at that in any different way, because we have to assure ourselves that the standards achieved of an e-award is the same as of any other award. And that is crucial within the higher education system in the UK. These are the three areas where the expectations come from. I won't give you too much detail about this in the interest of time, but the Quality Assurance Agency is our national inspection body, if you like, that looks at all universities with some regularity. We've got our major inspection coming up later this academic year. It takes about a year to prepare for it, to make sure all the evidence is there. When they look at how we do as a university, they could go into any corner of the university, they could start centrally, they will look at our strategies, they will look at teaching approaches, they will look at our assessment methods, they will look at everything. And although when you're in my position and responsible for this, that's slightly frightening, when you look at it from a higher education quality point of view, it is excellent. It does mean that our awards is something that we can vouch for. It really means a high quality degree. We have therefore a highly regulated higher education sector. There are a number of changes happening. There are a number of private providers coming in, and because of the high level of regulation of the publicly funded sector, there are some discussions about what that will mean and whether that will make a change into the credibility of degrees, and specifically in the credibility of the e-based degrees. The QAA has been very proactive about it and has made it very clear that they do not have any different expectations on private providers than on public providers. So there is no change in the quality assurance or in the academic standards issues. And interestingly, the private providers, contrary to what a lot of us expected, have made it very clear that they want to be part of the same inspectoral regime, because they have every interest in making sure that the quality of their degrees is as well assured as any other degree. And if you think about it, I'm sure you can see why. What has greatly helped on the credibility and the benchmarking has on e-learning specifically has been the credibility of the UK Open University. There's no doubt about it. It was a controversial move at the time when it started, but by now it is a very well established and highly respected part of the higher education sector in the UK. So that has made it, their credibility and their achievement has made it very much possible for universities like mine to venture into distance learning and into e-learning in very innovative ways, because some of the questions that may be asked in different countries did not occur in this situation. E-learning is mostly used as a blended learning hybrid. So in my institution, 16% of our students are on distance learning programs, but even those distance learning students, we quite often ask to come to residentials. That is a model that we believe in our institution works well, because we believe that the exposure to the academic staff and the discussions and debates with the academic staff directly is highly valuable. That does not mean that it is impossible to do this in different ways and effectively through video conferencing and all sorts of other social media methods. This is far more possible now than it used to be. So there is a new development happening there. Crucially, the credibility of the awards and the credibility of e-learning and distance learning depends on the credibility of the providing institutions. From my institution's perspective, we are in a fortunate position. We're a top 10 university nationally. We're in the top 3 with Oxford and Cambridge for teaching excellence according to the Times Good University Guide. And our quality, and the reason for that is that our quality assurance and development model drives quality as a function of learning and teaching, not of administration. There is always a major risk when it comes to benchmarking and quality assurance that becomes a paper-filling exercise, a once-in-a-while inspection that you prepare for, but the reflection and the thinking of quality does not pervade the learning and teaching. That is what we try to move away from. So it's very much a function of the quality of learning and teaching and academic standards as an academic matter, not just an administrative matter. In terms of our e-perspective, as it happens, we were one of this is long before my time, so I'm not claiming anything there. We were the first university to use open source virtual learning environment. In our case, that was Moodle. That is now highly taken up. I don't know whether you use Moodle in India. Sorry, I apologize. I should have asked that question before, and I haven't. I see a few people nodding. This is very much a system that is increasingly used across the UK. With a very high uptake of VLE usage, a lot of involvement in OER development, Jorum, which is our national repository for OER material, and a number of JISC projects. That is something that we have found very important because it creates innovation, reflection, and staff capacity within our academic community by talking to other institutions, by finding out what happens out there, by being at the forefront of innovation. And I would say that is something that is very important when it comes to the quality of learning and teaching, to be out there, to compare and to learn. Again, high level of use of student feedback and external examiners, and that is very important again for the benchmarking side of things. Now I hope that's given you a little bit of an overview of where we are in the UK. I'd be very interested to hear how that compares to India. And of course, I'm very welcome a little later on to answer any questions.
Thank you, Gwen, for giving us an overview of how quality assurance is being done in the United Kingdom and specifically in your university. Just we will take the questions further, but for the information, we do use Moodle in our courses. And the person who's going to present, Sanjay, he started when postgraduate diploma in e-learning, he started with the Moodle, and now which is being continued by my colleague, Professor Panda, sitting here, and Maitli. And some of our other online courses also we are using Moodle. So that's for information. I now invite Sanjay to present his views on how quality assurance or benchmark standards can be maintained or are maintained in eContent. Sanjay.
Thank you, Professor Farhar, and my greetings to all present here and the regional centers. At the outset, I would like to thank the British Council and Professor Kanjilal specially for this invitation for this presentation. I know I am going to make a presentation to largely the Indian audience, and they may be knowing most of the things that I am going to talk about. But at the end of the presentation, I will be very happy if you take some of the questions that I raised in the presentation and think about this for the development of quality assurance issues in Indian higher education system. The presentation is briefly categorized into 4 parts, and I will talk about this enabling environment, the e-learning scenario, quality assurance mechanisms, and the training opportunities on education and training. The e-learning environment actually comes from the 1998 National IT Task Force recommendation asking institutions of national importance to start virtual institute, and I'm happy to say that the IGNOU is the first institution that actually jumped into the call for this recommendation and started the virtual campus initiative in 1998. And then, of course, after several years, the National Mission on Education through ICT has taken over several activities that were recommended by the IT Task Force at that time, and we are having a huge impetus because of the NME ICT, and I don't want to go through that. What Mr. Sinha has already talked about, and parts of that has also been covered by Professor Mangala Sundar. The e-learning scenario, in fact, actually starts from 1996 in Indian scenario with Netversity by NIIT, and then of course IGNOU in 1998-99 taking it carefully from the recommendation, Tamil Virtual University, IIM Bangalore, then NPTEL coming out. Of course, I am not sure it's 2007 or 2009, 2003, because I saw previously it is 2003 in the session, but I think it's 2007 actually it is coming up in the name itself. And then NME ICT. But what is important is that there is really lack of real information about number of courses available on online learning ways in India, a number of students studying through online learning, the gender profile of the students, the problems of access to the students. We really don't have the national statistics available on that. So this very we can say that large number of universities are taking off e-learning, and NME ICT is a kind of propelling environment to start e-content courses. But how far institutions have taken care of is not, we don't know. But as the Vice Chancellor today, IGNOU Vice Chancellor told that we have over 20 courses now, programs on e-learning in IGNOU itself. So I can very well say that IGNOU is a leader in e-learning in Indian scenario. But I would like to emphasize that some of the instructional design research that at IGNOU that we have conducted, and one of the that very widely referred and used is the instructional design model for web environment. That was part of the research work that the first social science online program in India was here in IGNOU was done. It's a resettlement and rehabilitation online, and we use this model there. One of the things Professor Pathak was talking about, peer evaluation, we actually did peer evaluation in that program, and there are several new ideas that was done, and this is a model that has been very widely used in some other places now, which was done here itself in this university. And of course there is a general instructional design model, which we call it ERIC, experience, reflect and interact and connect. This is a framework that can be very well used in online environment and any other environment. So how do we present instruction to the students, and these are the research work that were done based on our engagement in e-learning programs, e-learning research that we have done here itself, which actually has culminated into development of this, what Professor Parhar referred to is the postgraduate diploma on e-learning, which is a completely online program. Even assessment takes place mostly online, except that their students have to come for a face-to-face 5 days interaction for skill training. It actually covers a whole course on instructional design theory and practice, and students actually go through rigorous practice of doing instructional design as a project, and then take that into development of a real life live course for them to offer it online and offer to their students, and then gets it evaluated in the project. So this is a kind of a practical model of training people on using e-learning, and of course we use Moodle and several other both open source and paid softwares for the project. But the content comes from completely OER based materials. That is the very significant part of this course, because by this course, because it's e-learning, I think somebody mentioned before previously that the content development would take longer time. By the time you develop the content, your content has become outdated. Deliberately we choose a model of OER. Not many people were talking of the OER at that time 3 years back when we started this, but now it is a national and international importance of important topic on OER, and we use the OER content at that time to develop these courses in the shortest possible time. We included many people who are present here to contribute to this development, including some of the speakers who will also be coming and speaking here in this conference, and that's how we peer reviewed the available content and put that. The important thing was the rigor that we put the students in the teaching and learning process, and that's what I will focus in my next slide. But looking at the quality assurance scenario in India, and which is something new is going to happen soon, is the National Council of Higher Education and Research, precisely because of the questions of there are different bodies doing quality assurance for different topics, like DAC for distance learning, teacher education, engineering education, AICT, medical education, agriculture education by ICAR accreditation board, and higher education NAC. There was a manual some time back developed by me for NAC on quality assurance, which talks about the process of and status of quality assurance, and this is just the picture of that one. But what is important is, I think my co-presenter here talked about that some of the issues, that questions that are highlighted here is that who is responsible to monitor quality? Do you want somebody else come in and tell us that how we should do quality assurance, how we should do, or teachers themselves should be empowered to assure quality of teaching and learning? In fact, Distance Education Council was the first quality assurance body in this country before the NAC and other quality assurance came. So therefore, the open and distance learning as a practice is a proactive partner in talking about quality assurance processes in that sense. So e-learning and quality assurance, we should be thinking about that. Who should monitor? Should quality measure be different for different modes of learning? And this is something that UK model we should look at, that learning quality is same for everyone, irrespective of the mode, how can we say that the learning quality will be different from different modes, and we have different criteria for measuring those things? We can talk about institutional framework. Some of the institutions may have buildings, some of the institutions may not have buildings because they are virtual. But I think learning quality should be uniform and should be one standard, and that's one model that UK and many other institutions and countries around the world now focusing on single parameters irrespective of the mode of learning. But another thing that we also should look at, that by talking of instructional design, we should not prescribe presentation formats, that we should say that we should be doing this kind of way only, because e-learning brings in varieties of opportunities and parameters. So we should think about what kind of presentation formats we are going to recommend. Should we tell this 4-quadrant approach is the only way of doing things, or there can be other ways of looking at things? So what is important, everyone is talking about in this workshop is about content. I am sure content is king, but content is king, but not everything. So we need to look at engagement, which is very crucial and important for effective learning, per se. Content, to be very precise, and I want to emphasize it that content is only part of the instructional design process, and therefore we cannot harp always on the quality of content. It is the whole transaction process that is important in the teaching and learning process, and therefore e-learning is going to bring in much benefits to the educational transaction process. Good content design, we can talk and we can give guidelines for good content, but what is important is the learning outcomes and the process quality. That is very important. We need to design engagement outside of the learning content, and of course within the learning content. That in teaching and learning material in distance education, we emphasize about making engaging content very much. So there are guidelines available for quality content developments. My present organization, Commonwealth Educational Media for Asia, we have developed a quality guideline framework along with the Ministry of Human Resource Development, which follows the IHE approach of instructional designs and provides criteria, descriptors, and how to assess quality of learning materials. However, this is precisely from the content point of view of multimedia materials, and therefore any usage of this need to be contextualized in institutional perspective as well as an e-learning perspective. I would emphasize on these 3 criteria that if you want to assure quality of online programs, then we need to follow standards, both technical standards and quality standards, which is of course has to be uniform for the quality standards has to be uniform across the modes of teaching and learning. And then of course we have to identify benchmarks from the point of view of content, how the content will be organized and presented, what are the instructional design issues involved as far as student engagement, how student assessment needs to be looked at, and what are the, do we need to change from the 3-hour pen and paper test, and or we want to continue that, because e-learning will bring in new dimension of assessment, and should we adopt those, or we go through this 3 hours pen and papers test, and how technology is used and how technology support is given and learner support is given to the students. These are the kind of benchmarks need to be developed with clear indicators and descriptors to assess, so that 2 persons looking at the same criteria or indicators are not looking at 2 things, the same thing differently. And of course what is important is quality assurance processes. So internal quality assurance is very important. I think someone mentioned about the self-regulation. I think Mr. Sinha talked about self-regulation. I think it is very important that we develop self-regulatory mechanism, and that will only come through capacity building. Teachers need to be empowered, which is Professor Pathak talked about that. Teacher empowerment will come from understanding of the whole e-learning technical issues as well as the quality issues on teaching and learning per se, because which is uniform for face-to-face teaching or distance learning or e-learning per se. So this is what I would like to make my presentation as brief as possible and as fast as possible, and I would like to have questions and interaction more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sanjay, for your brief and excellent presentation, giving us an overview what research we are doing at IGNO, talking about the program which you initiated and being done by the Staff Training and Research Institute of Distance Education in IGNO, and regarding the benchmarks and the various other bodies which are doing the quality assurance. Now the floor is open for discussion. We invite questions from my colleagues sitting here and the colleagues sitting at the various regional centers. Questions now, please. we have another 10 minutes of interaction before we go for lunch.
Can we have question of the earlier session?
Professor Uma? What? Yeah. No. Maybe.
That may be put to the floor for discussion. Also reflect from any other expert. It's related to this. You know what is coming in that way. Number one, we are talking about development of e-content, and it is widely talked about that the context is important. It is not that global context will work. We'll have to have specific sensitivity and localized need to look into mind. But what is happening, that is a one-way process of delivering a flow of information imposing on the people. Now, is it not possible to think of an otherwise process, making a need-based survey of the localized need, so that we are pumping a big flow of information without visualizing who will be using, how it will be using, how it will be certified, how it will be contextualized. So I believe there is a need to have something, a upward drive rather than something flow from the below rather than flow from the above. When I was looking at the whole report of this UNO, this Understanding Knowledge Society, I understand we are speaking in the context of a knowledge society. There is enormous talk about the smart knowledge society, not a wrapped knowledge society. A smart knowledge society obviously will talk about a kind of flow of knowledge, a quality knowledge. Simultaneously, it also will talk about how a quality use at that end. I believe that is quite important. In this context, what we are talking about, I think the instructional design, etc., like this, being an academic of this Open University, I am not hearing anything new. I am hearing what I have heard in 1995, continuing with the same kind of instructional design, nothing breakthrough there. This participatory, Sanjay was mentioning.
Okay, yeah. Maybe any one of you have the answer to that question, or
to Sanjay especially. Yeah. I'll be interested to know, because Sanjay mentioned the program, participatory resettlement
and rehabilitation online
program that will start from my department, the sociology department. Unfortunately, we had only half a dozen students. And had it been continued one way or the other, maybe now we could have got something more. But the basic problem remained, Sanjay, I understood, it was not from the below, what kind of package we need. Rather, it's the kind of a information flow from the above. Maybe while we are thinking about the e-content development, a kind of a research we should talk about. We are talking about the faculty empowerment. Unfortunately, we are talking about the faculty empowerment in a blank. When you talk about the faculty empowerment, this university, Indira Gandhi Open University, spend 30 crores of rupees per annum towards the publicity and advertisement. It does not spend even 1 rupee for the faculty.
Can we take other questions, please?
Yes. The thing is that because you are basically looking after the quality assurance, so when you went particularly in UK, how you have what precautions you have taken for the quality assurance, and what problems you faced there while doing that? Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Can I just, could you clarify precautions to avoid what?
Precautions means what you have to look into before, what markers you have, and how you went ahead with the because which benchmarkers you would be taking care of when you would, because we all who are attending the seminars, we would be in one way or the other way would be involved in the development of the e-content. So when we would be going ahead with our we would be planning at the planning stage itself. So all these, can we get the benefits from your problems you have faced, and how we should, before designing and even thinking ahead, that what actually we should put into the e-content, these precautions, because quality assurance, definitely we are the academia and we would be looking after the content sensitivity and everything, but the problems you have already faced, which you have developed, and how you handled it, have you, if you can elaborate, and so that we can be the beneficiaries of that.
The most important part of quality assurance is getting the design right. That's what I would say. So the level of program design it's very much at the beginning. That's where the big investment needs to be made. And when I talk about program design, I don't mean actually putting the curriculum and putting the eContent together, but really understanding who are the students that are going to be learning. That needs analysis. Your colleague sitting next to you just raised that issue. How well do we understand the learners that we are actually developing our programs for? That takes some time, and that is absolutely worth investing in. Once you really understand that, a lot of other things fall into place. So the types of activities that you choose in terms of learning, the types of teaching that you use, whether you need the lecture or whether you can expect students to do that work, to do the legwork in advance, and then have a far more interactive process instead of a lecture, whether that fits those students, how you organize the teaching, how you organize the assessment.
That's the design
That's
basic parameters for designing. I mean, when you are doing the quality assurance, so what actual parameters
Okay. Yeah.
Overshooting the time, so we have to wind up.
Okay, fine. I think we will be having enough time during maybe half an hour or so much, so we can discuss it over lunch, which is going to be there in the guest house. With just one word, that quality assurance is a very, very important area, whether we are doing the print material or we are doing e-content or we are having audio-video programs, and where each and every component have the learning has to be assured. This is a quality, like what Sanjay was talking about learning outcome. I just giving an example that if we have a lower order thinking skills or objectives, learning outcomes framed, I don't think so the material or the e-content is a quality assured material, whether it is print or e-content. With these words, I thank Gwen and Sanjay for their excellent presentation, and I invite on behalf of British Council as well as IGNO and the organizing committee, I invite all of you for lunch. Uma, lunch is in the guest house? Okay, we will know that. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Welcome friends and learned participants to this, particularly to this post-lunch session, and the theme of this session is going to be the instructional design for e-content and e-resources. And this session we would be basically focusing on the case studies from India, and in this session we have three presentations. We have three great eminent scholars with us, and they would be presenting on various themes. But before I'll introduce to each of them, I would request my participants as well, and as well as to my regional center, particularly to be ready with the questions, because we are going to have 10 minutes presentation. Each presentation would be of 10 minutes, and 15 minutes we would be saving for the discussion, and both the participants here as well as at the regional centers be ready for their questions, so that they would be glad to answer. All the scholars would be glad to answer, and we would rather, because these are the case studies from India, from participants we would like to hear more from their own experiences as well, not confining just to the 3 speakers. So first, on my right, or the first speaker is, she is Professor Sandhya Kode. She is professor from IIT Hyderabad, and Triple IT Hyderabad. Dr. Kode is a widely acclaimed person, having the 30 years of experience. She had it Motorola as well, and so we can rightly call her the person from business oriented technology. She has focused on she has been the leader with diverse industry and functional experience, ranging from semiconductors, systems, wireless technology, all this sounds too high for me, and e-learning to management. And she is presently the Chief Mentor and Director, Enhance EDU and Training and Development Center for Education, Technology and Learning Sciences, that is CETLS, at IIT Hyderabad. Sorry for saying IIT. She is actually a PI for content development and project under NMEICT, if I'm correct, and PI for DIT project for enhancing quality of IT education in engineering college. So I just would like to reiterate one thing, that please take 10 minutes, otherwise your questions would be reduced. So the floor is open for you can start your presentation, please.
Thank you, Abba. Good afternoon, and I appreciate this opportunity to interact with you all, and thank British Council and IGNU for this opportunity. I consider myself a practitioner because I was more than 25 years in industry. However, looking at this context, what I'll briefly go over is the Indian context, and what our approach was, and then the outreach and impact. Okay. So the Indian perspective, the academic especially, is that there's been a proliferation of engineering colleges growing in the last couple of decades especially, and especially in the state of Andhra Pradesh, in 3 decades went from 6 or so engineering colleges to over 700 engineering colleges and counting. So there is a lack of qualified faculty to go around for these colleges. Now the learner perspective, there are learners with different learning styles, learning abilities, and basically they are also from rural areas and urban areas, so there are differences in what their baseline is. Then the industry perspective is, industry is expecting the graduating students to map real-world problems to programs, adapt to new technologies, and communicate effectively on the job. And all of these put a huge pressure, and how can we address these perspectives? So that's the positioning where we got started. And so our approach was taking a 3-phase approach of doing content development, training faculty members, and implementation at the colleges. So phase 1, now I won't dwell on learning by doing. This is the methodology that we followed, and this is a constructivist approach. And how can you be really good at doing something is by doing it. And I'd like to just say that if I listen to a lecture, I hear and I forget. If I see something, I may remember it, but if I do it, I understand it. So that being said, then there are learning styles. How do we take content and allow it to be personalized for learners? How do we provide other things like multimodal resources to adapt to the things? And industry is really looking for higher order thinking skills in the Bloom's taxonomy as opposed to the remembering, recall kind of a things. So, and then there is a learner expertise to deal with. Is the person a novice or an expert, etc.? So, all of this leading to, we have a butterfly model, what we had come up with, which has also been published, how we are developing content, and we've used this content to reach out to faculty members and students of not just the urban cities, but also to tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3 colleges in rural areas of Andhra Pradesh. So what does this entail? From whatever I have gathered from the morning session, it appears that this is not just an instructional design approach, but also a learning design approach because it allows for personalization. So learning objectives, we start with setting the expectations. Implementation, we look at some real world problems. Concept has expert video lectures, and here we are limiting the lectures to about 20 minutes, knowing that the attention span is not there, and moving on to illustrations, and this could include static animations, and a playground is more dynamic, includes simulations as well. And then analysis is mathematical proofs, insights is further evolution of concepts and also the history of it, and then imagination takes you to the realm of motivating for the next concept. So the interesting thing about the model is that if you look at the left hand side of the butterfly, it allows for the lower, middle, up to application end, and it helps the novice. And doing tasks helps the intermediate level person expertise, and the expert will be looking for analysis, insights, and imagination, which is the higher order thinking skills. And they can go directly to each of these sections without having to necessarily go through a flow. So this was under the aegis of the NME-ICT, the National Mission for Education through ICT. We developed a couple of courses in this model, Principles of Information Security and Data Structures. An example of a screenshot here is we're covering basics and projects. So basics may include things like, what's a tree, what's a stack, etc., etc. Projects are like, you can build a web calculator, and then someone would need to know how to start there and then use a stack and other concepts to be able to make it happen. And another thing that we worked on is e-assessment tool, and we've developed a prototype, and this is based on papers and research that has got acclaimed worldwide. This is on text-based evaluation. So there is such a thing as a golden text, and then answers would be compared with the golden text and then graded. So this is in the prototype stage. And we have several other e-courses in the works. But having content does not imply use. So the phase 2 of our program was on training the faculty members, and the way we did it is by getting institutional buy-in and support, engaging all the stakeholders from management to the heads of departments, teachers, had the faculty wholly engage in the training. Because unless we take a holistic approach and make them embrace the learning by doing methodology as opposed to just lecturing 5 teachers that come from a college and go back, the other 100 would tell them, why are you wasting your time, why are you doing all this, why don't you just go back to basics and just cover the syllabus. So in the process of just covering the syllabus, that's what they would do, so effectively covering the syllabus that they do not allow the student to uncover anything. So this was more important, the resilience building of the faculty, and that was a really important part of the component. And the faculty response was excellent. In addition to this program, which we did for 2 months for faculty, We designed shorter workshops which were also very successful, like Wiki Days and Moodle Days, Art of Teaching, and so on. And we took it to the students with continued institutional support and flipping the classroom. People have talked about this before, about doing the work in the class and listening to lectures afterwards. So this was the model. And we had the Moodle support, and faculty were no longer lecturers, they were mentors, they were guides. And so the impact was that we were able to reach over 60 engineering colleges affiliated with a number of universities in Andhra Pradesh and over 100 colleges in India. And there are the numbers. I want to go into them. The very interesting impact was that teacher rating by students increased on average about 16%. And students also had a good improvement on placement. So the conclusion was that we are working towards a scalable and sustainable system, producing excellent content, trying to inspire learners by providing personalization and not long lectures, and creating an environment that fosters innovation to be better in the future, and forging, most importantly, a synergy between industry and academia to enhance student employability and industry capacity. So we are really looking forward for collaboration with all the enablers of this paradigm shift, trying to use the new technology but actually apply it. So content is king, but engagement is key. So we did do the engagement, and here are some results. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sandhya, for your scintillating presentation and your hands-on experience. And I think it's showing 16% success is a big success by any parameters. So we'll have discussion on all the three together. So our next speaker is Dr. Sanjeev Singh. He is from Institute of Informatics and Communication. Dr. Singh has been working in the area of computer networks, learning technologies, and integrated optics from last 12 years into the field. He has published more than 45 research papers in acclaimed international journals, and he has also been the visiting fellow to University of Manchester in Science and Technology, UMIST, UK, under Commonwealth Fellowship Scheme. A member of National IT Committee, FICCI. He has conducted various open resource ICT workshops for faculty members to different universities, and since last 10 years he has been associated with the Institute of Lifelong Learning for the University of Delhi, and he is also in charge of the ICT and e-learning initiatives of Delhi University. So welcome, Dr. Singh. And for your presentation, please.
Thanks. So I quickly introduce my university. It's one of the largest central universities, having more than 300,000 students in both regular and non-formal stream. So, and we have around 80 colleges catering to various disciplines. So in 2007 and 2006 around, so university decided to move on to set up a virtual learning environment by which we can provide the seamless access to the students of Delhi University. And the project initiated well with we started the development of different kind of content for the students of various disciplines. So this is just an ideal learning setting where any student would like to have the content available all the time. It should be customizable, personalized, it should be modular, and it should be engaging. So keeping those basic design principles, we moved on, and we started working on with a different approach. We had in mind a blended approach where of course the thinking was, because the network has become the core learning platform and everybody has to come to join the network, so the learning network is growing. So we started working on blended processes, distributed repositories, and all that. And now also realizing the fact that the whole world is setting up the knowledge repositories and open courseware, open educational resources. So I'm here to present just a case study what we did in the last 5 years and what model we adopted. So this is the content model we had, where the two prime parameters we had, the capture and deliver. Between them we have to report, we have to create, we have to prepare, and to assist the learners, and also to assess the learners. So this is the byproduct of the whole cycle, but the prime parameters, capture and deliver, is the key issue for the university. So we started work with the help of the teachers engaged in various colleges, and we started working in different disciplines. So basic sciences, humanities, and arts and applied sciences, and we started working the collaborative project-based lab modules. And on the side, we started giving trainings to the teachers on the various technology platforms, so that they are equipped, they are skilled enough to cope up with the evolving, coming changes in the learning domain. So this is just a snapshot of we have the faculty sitting here, and we conduct the training session for them, how to design the content and all. Some infrastructure for the faculties. These are some training sessions. It's an ongoing process throughout the year now, and we have trained so far about 700 teachers on different technology platform, where now they are very happy, and they are constantly contributing in content development. So some of the issues we addressed during that period: what is the method we are going to adopt, what is the platform we are going to identify with that, what should be the deployment metrics, what are the best practices around, some pedagogical issues, how to deal with them, and also the most important part, how to deliver them. So we got in touch with various institutions around the world. We worked with the Open University UK, we worked with different other universities, and recently we've signed an MOU with Massey University, New Zealand, and where we have the very, very effective role to play, where we have to share the content, and collaboratively we have to create the content for both the institutions in some of the domains. So another very important project started a few years back, and everybody is aware of that, NME ICT, and through NKN. So we've got the mandate to connect our institutions with rest of the institutions in India, and we have recently, 6 months back, we have signed an MOU with Kashmir University, where we agreed to deliver the content what we are creating here with the help of NKN, and we are setting up a sustainable model to share the content, and we are right now sending the faculty, giving them training, and we are inviting their students to have the look and feel how they can be engaged in this kind of technological development. So this is a screenshot what we have right now. So you can access it at vle.du.ac.in. So we have around 400 courses, more than 8,500 users, and 35 active teachers. They are always on to supporting this portal. And now we are very, very particular about the quizzes. So we have around 46,000 quizzes for the self-assessment of the students. So now this is a very interesting part, where the students are coming again and again to assess themselves, to get to know their progress and all. So earlier we were having the mechanism of getting them through the login base and all those kind of things. So right now we have made it open, so anybody can access, even in the guest mode they can assess themselves. So there's the way how we are arranging the courses. Some of the programs, some of the courses we have made with built-in interactivity, using all those instruction modules which we have learned today morning session. And so all these courses are freely available to download in the PDF format, and you can have the entire course available. So around 400 courses. We took about 3 years. Now we have to develop much more, strong repository for the learning community. So this is the snapshot of a virtual learning platform what we are doing, and quickly I'll just give you an idea how we are connecting different colleges to our learning network. So we are giving the single sign-on, single login user password is optional, and why we are doing it, so that any institution can become the part of this learning network. So what we are going to get out of this, a seamless access to all education material, what we have been developing, is the inter-institutional, which is missing earlier, and intra-institutional access to resources, what we are developing, aggregating, and also the transparent organization of e-learning using the institutional links. So this is the roadmap. We started this process in 2002 as a pilot project, and we moved on to activity-based learning in 2005. In 2007, we became live. In 2010, we introduced different integrated different application, and now in 2012 we are moving on to a different platform. So I mean, we are using, of course, Moodle as a preferred platform for learning, teaching and learning, both the things. So this is one of the most robust platform we have come across. We have tested many, but this is one of the finest one. So what would be the change in learning environment if we highlight? So this is our core experience, that we have strengthening the existing learning, and it's a single access point to access quality content for all the students. Colleges may be involved in content creation, and is a blessing for us. We have 80 constituent colleges and around 10,000 faculty. So it's a mammoth task to train all of them in one go. So we are creating small in phases. We are creating a bunch of 20 teachers at a time. So we are giving domain-specific teachers as a different training, whether it's a content creation or how to make it available to the student. And now, presently, we have a much difficult task for us, how to provide content for the students with disabilities. So this is another issue, and we are taking help of various other institutions to create content for those students who are not able to access in a normal routine life. And by this we could able to automate the assessment system, and also some of our learning content is available out of campus. So some of the possibilities I've already explained, to explore synergies between OER and other such initiatives, to work closely with NK and NME ICT project, and also the learning flow exchange. We need to explore the possibility how we can collaborate with the various other institutions. With the help of such kind of platforms, we can interact, but to make it more sustainable, we need to have a curriculum based collaborative project, so that we can work for a sustainable period of time. So these are some of the implementing opportunities. NME ICT is one of the most impressive project we have seen in the recent times. We can certainly look forward for open education resources and to aggregate the material. Labs and simulation is thanks to Professor Fatak, and I've attended a couple of his workshops where he showed the simulations and other scientific experiments on Akash, and some of the core simulation based experiments we have already integrated in our colleges, which are purely in engineering domain, whether it's electronics, communication, computers, and all. These are phenomenal, and it needs to be widely publicized among all the institutions. And we, as Professor Sandhya has already mentioned, there's 700 engineering colleges and growing. So they need not to reinvent the wheel, and the fantastic content has already been created in terms of simulation. So we need to take leverage on that. So this is the vision of University of Delhi, where the institutional repository is being made, and out of which we are getting connected with various other institutions. We have signed few MOUs with Indian universities and a couple of MOUs with other foreign universities, but they are likely to grow. So we have the global interactions, but ultimately the end user is going to get the benefit out of it. So the main responsibility for the university is to categorize, aggregate the content the way the learner is looking forward, and also to embed and integrate some pedagogical issues and deliver it more effectively. So some of the points for the switch is why to do it, is it feasible, what does it involve, how do we go about it, and who's going to help me. So these are some of the issues with us, but somehow in the last 3 years we have seen that with the constant effort we could able to support the community which was slightly away from the strong bonding with the institution with the help of technology. So I remember the famous quote by Mahatma Gandhi, First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. Many thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Singh, and for your scintillating presentation and sharing particularly your DU experiences. Definitely, it's one of the biggest institution that
Thank
the
you.
country is having. But we are going to take 2 minutes break, and our viewers there at regional centers and participants here, please get ready with your questions, and we would be after the because the presentation that Dr. Reena is going to have, before that presentation we will have 2 minutes break, and after her presentation we will be having a discussion. Thank you. No, I'll not. Your presentation is good. Hello, welcome friends, and I would take this opportunity to welcome the third and the last speaker of this session, Dr. Reena Puri, and she is from NIIT. Dr. Reena Puri is a PhD in cognitive psychology from the University of Delhi. She has more than 19 years of experience in leading teams of curriculum designing, competency development, solution design, consulting, delivery of learning products and services for audience across domains and geographies. She has been working with NIIT in the area of instructional design, ILTs, WBTs. She would explain all these in detail, I hope, and online courses including blended solutions for higher education.
Yes.
And now for the presentation, Dr. Reena.
Thank you so much, and hi everyone for this post-lunch session. I don't have a presentation, but before I begin showing what I intend showing, let me say what I'm doing. I work with a division of NIIT called Learning Solution Enterprises, where we develop curriculum for the K-12 segment, postgraduate, undergraduate, and the doctoral segment across the world. So what we do is we develop courses, simply put. And what do we keep in mind while developing these courses? We follow Roger Shank's dictum, which believes that one learns best through hearing stories. So when we actually develop courses, what we keep in mind is that the courses should actually have either a case study, or if you're explaining a concept, explain with the help of an example. If you want to explain it further, explain it with a non-example. This is what people learn best with. The integration of content. Now, if I were a student, or if you were a student, we wouldn't, if you were to go online and go through content, we wouldn't like volumes and volumes of written content, would we? Dr. Sandhya also said about using various of our modalities. Yes, we learn best when we use all our 5 senses. So, e-learning is the best platform to encompass all these 5 senses. And how do we do that? We do that when we take in curriculum and media and apply the e-learning concepts into this media. So what I'm going to be showing you are few demonstrations where we've applied instructional design concepts into media, and this is how we actually show our courses. I'll also be showing you a glimpse of one of the courses which was completely done in media. Okay, now see what is the advantage. Abha just talked about what I do. I develop WBTs, I develop CBTs, computer-based technologies, I developed ILTs, instructor-led trainings. I also develop online courses. So all these things do require a mixture and a balance of content and media. So I'm going to show you some of the media pieces which we've developed and how they can actually benefit and engross a learner into learning, because research has shown that a learner spends not more than averagely 1 second per page if the content is not interesting. And the aim of any e-learning course or e-learning curriculum is to ensure that the learner learns from a curriculum and then goes and answers all the assessments which are there. So how do you engross a learner? That is my aim, and these are some of the things which we have been developing. One very simple, if you're using a case study, is through using this book. We have a case here. This is a case on Daniel Goleman, the author of Emotional Intelligence, and we wanted to explain what is emotional intelligence. So we have a book. When a student has got control over this, if you see what's happening, they know what to do. This makes it easy and fun for the students to learn. They can go back, they can go forward. It's like reading a real book. This is a very good method of presenting curriculum which is case-based. Another one which I would like to show you is the comic book approach. Comic book approach has worked very well with undergraduates and the K-12 segment. So this is an example on digital forensics. By the way, I have developed curriculum for general education from psychology, English, math, chemistry, bio to digital forensics, criminal justice, gaming, arts and design, fashion retailing, you name it, and I've done it, to nursing, everything. So this is what been my experience. So this is a comic book approach which really engrosses a student. And you can see the amount of instructional design which has gone into it. Media is not just animations. Media requires a lot of instructional designing, the thought, the amount of words which will grasp the student. What is the key message you want to present in the shortest duration, in the best format? That's what instructional designing is all about. Okay, so this is one of the approach. Another one is this one which we call the winemaking process. So it was very simply put on a napkin, the idea of how wine making is, the making process is explained.
Following a hand selection to get rid of unripe or rotten fruit, the grapes are destemmed and lightly crushed before going into fermentation tanks. Lesser properties.
One thing which I do want to say, all these courses are ADA compliant. That means they are for the visually impaired or the auditory impaired. The auditory impaired can read all this. The visually impaired, they are ADA compliant so that they can get everything in Braille.
The famed Chargot Margaux uses both wood and stainless steel. Stainless steel is easier to clean and sanitize and better for controlling temperature. The introduction of temperature-controlled stainless steel tanks a generation ago has led to major improvements in the quality of everyday.
Okay, this is another strategy. Another strategy is using a timeline. How do you explain something which has occurred over a period of time? This is one way of doing it. We have a dragger which takes us right through, and when you want to read about something, you just click on it, it gives you a detailed explanation about it. You want to go back? So this is called a timeline approach. When I want to make another thing which is simpler in an animated format, I can give uses.
Supplier 1, raw material, cotton.
This seems very simple to explain, but actually if you come to think of it, this is explaining how a raw material is taken and sent to the retail factory. So the entire concept is very important.
After producing cotton cloth, the manufacturer supplies it to the dress designer to design and create dresses. Supplier 3, dress designer. The dress designer has 2 additional suppliers. Thread supplier, the thread manufacturer who supplies threads, and bead supplier, the beads manufacturer who supplies beads. After the dresses are ready, the dress designer supplies them to the wholesaler for packaging. Supplier 4, wholesaler. The dresses get packed in different boxes, and then the wholesaler supplies these packed dresses to the retailers. Supplier 5, retailer. The retailers are the suppliers for the customers. They supply the finished goods. The customer. Customers buy the finished dresses from the retail outlets.
We have created them ourselves.
Like the book, you have adopted it in the e-mode or?
Could we take in the question answer session, all these things?
Okay, another thing which I want to show you, just one more thing, is game. We've seen the Kaun Banega Crorepati game. We've adapted that with one of the curriculums. And we called it catch the question because we can't use the existing terms because they already have copyright. So if we write the person's name, say, if we want to change it to one of the characters, we can change the character and say we continue. So this was on torts. So here you say, okay, I bid for $200. Money sought as a remedy for breach of contract. Do you want to respond? If he says yes, he's got the options. What is this question answer for? So like this, if you see on top, the money is getting accumulated out here. So this is also, and this is the time, and this is where the score is now negative 2000. If he goes on to say $400 question and he gives an answer, he's won 400, now it's become positive 200 if you see here. So this way we have got games. We have taken Hangman, the very simple game which all of us have played, modified it, made it a little horrifying, made it a little different, and say escape the hangman. This person is responsible for maintaining appropriate communication with clients. So who's that person? So we do not know who this is. So I'll just quickly run through it and see which one ever is coming. And as you can see, the more wrong answers I'm clicking, the guy is falling down. Poor guy, the crocodile has nearly got him. So this is an example of the game. Not only that, we can also use videos, like in this case, just videos with the content written.
Cultural difficulties by being aware of the challenges it can encounter. However, a manager operating in a foreign location cannot be expected to know the cultural intricacies of that place. The key lies in hiring a local person who can help the company learn more about the country.
So these are some of the examples of content which we develop, which actually has e-learning or instructional design as a base. So that's all there is to my presentation.
Thanks, Dr. Reena. It was really very, very interesting, captivating, no doubt. And she has shown how to integrate various technologies for instructional design for developing the e-content. And there are 5-7 minutes to to us. So the floor is open for questions and discussion.
The question is, like the content that you have shown, first was ebook by Daniel Goleman. So these kind of content can be available on the website. What is the need to develop that content for us? And then second is, whatever videos you are showing, the accent is not Indian. And the question answer, that Kaun Banega Crorepati model, the currency is in dollars. We are talking about contextualizing knowledge. And if you are using all the content that is already available on other websites, if we are adopting those contents, then there is no use for national mission for education. These contents are already available. Why are you wasting money on these things?
One, first and foremost, none of these are taken from any website. Okay? You won't find anything on any website. Even that book, that flip book, which is the way it's been created, it's been created in NIT. These all have been created for the American audience. These are clients for American universities who we created for. That's why the American accent and the dollar signs. And that's why you'll find that all the characters were also Americanized. I doubt if any university or anybody would want to take plagiarized content from the web. So there's no question of taking any content or material from the web, and nobody would want to spend thousands of dollars just on taking content from the web. We have content developed for the Indian segment. Unfortunately, I couldn't bring it because even my machine does not support that software. Otherwise, we have developed content for the Indian market, for the K-12 segment also. We develop a lot of content for the ILS segment of ours, which goes to the NIT universities. Those are customized to the Indian market. Now this was particularly for the American audience, so that's why it's like this.
Okay, now we'll take a call from Dehradun, madam.
Yes, yes. Call from Dehradun, please. Hello, there is a call. Please just wait.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yes.
It's been a fascinating discussion. We have a question. Hello.
Yes, you go ahead, please.
Professor Durgesh Pant. Initially, I was with IGNOU. At the moment, I am with Uttarakhand Open University. And since we have already pitched in with this e-learning model, I have a very specific question. Because you see, with difficult geography, this entire paradigm happens to be of utmost importance, especially in very, those far-flung areas. So connectivity happens to be a huge issue. So how to go about it? Number one, where there is absolutely no connectivity. So this offline mode, online mode again happens to be, of extreme importance. One very interesting thing that comes out of this discussion is the e-learning. E-learning happens to have, of great significance for us because we have large number of mobile users all across, and in fact the last village that we happen to have, Mana of the country, is there we have put in a center and people are using mobiles for learning. So can it be that this device explosion, and Akash, one of our expert, was mentioning, can be a great revolutionizing thing? So can it be of some significance, especially if interoperability is taken into account? How should we go about it? And especially with regard to difficult geographies. Difficult geography is very, very significant. Please.
Would you like to respond quickly? Then we have to wind up.
Does this work?
Yes, it is working. Please go ahead.
Okay. So I think that's the whole purpose of the national mission of education and ICT, is that there can be content and that can be taken and put on local systems even without connectivity. The whole NPTEL has been done with that approach of taking it all, and you can put it on 4 terabyte disk and hang it off your system, and then the local people can all use it if you have systems right there. So it's not required that you have to have connectivity. Connectivity helps, but it's not required. So a lot of content that is being developed is for the purpose of being able to be used offline and online. So I think that is definitely there, and of course on the roadmap are both Akash and possibly also in the future the mobiles.
Thank you. I'd like to add one thing. Yes. A lot of content which NIT is developing is also for the tablet and for mobile learning, because mobile learning and tablet learning has now become the way of the day. It's not the future, it is now. So e-learning is not just distance or near learning, it is how you can give student the best forum to learn and the best way which he or she will learn with. And so mobile learning is now what is the future, mobile and tablet learning.
So thank you. There are many questions, but we are running out of time. I would like to take the opportunity to thank all our 3 speakers, and we would be right back for another session which would be focusing on how effectiveness of the designing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.